Pancake! He goes. Geiger driving and finishing with the one-handed jam.
Welcome in to podcast number, I believe it's 5 for the EWC podcast. Today we got a good show for you. We're going to be breaking down some regional semifinal games. And we got quite a few good ones today. We're just going to go game by game, and we're just going to break down the matchups. I got my good friend Connor Velker back, and how's it going today, Connor?
Oh, I'm doing well. Always great to be talking some EWC basketball. We should have some good matchups on Friday. Looking forward to previewing them tonight.
Yes, it is the best time of the year. February madness, as we should say.
Late February madness, nothing better.
Of course. So let's just jump into our first game right away. We got, I believe it's number 3 seed Southern Door Eagles. They'll be traveling to Valders, take on the number 2 seed Valders. And, Valders is 12-12 on the year. They're better than their record, obviously. They're not a 500 team. Southern Door's 16-4, but Valders is the better team. They should win this game. Just the conference are a little unbalanced. You got Jackson Olsen and Cole Hovey both averaging 10.7 points per game and 5.6 rebounds. And I'm not exactly sure what Peyton Dietrich's status is. He's obviously the primary ball handler. He's got 43% from behind the arc this season. But because I know he had a thumb injury, I'm not sure if that's healed. How much was he playing against Kiel?
He played pretty much normal. And yeah, I can kind of attest to that too. It's not easy to play with a broken thumb. I did it about half the year last year, and yeah, he played very well against Kiel on Thursday night. So I think that he'll be good to go. And yeah, he kind of stirs the drink for Valders.
Yeah, he makes stuff happen. He's their playmaker, I'd say. And looking at Valders' team stats, 52.7 points per game, and they are shooting just behind Kiel. Kiel's shooting a conference best 35% from behind the arc, and they're in the top 3 in both offensive and defensive rebounds. So, this team can get hot from behind the arc. They can put up high point totals, and they do rebound the ball very well. So now we'll look at Southern Door. And again, we mentioned the Packerland Conference. You can't compare the Packerland and the EWC, so that 16-4 can be a little misleading. But Alex Doust is leading that conference with 20.3 points per game, and he's really going to lead them, but I just don't think it'll be enough. Right now, my pick, I had Valders 62, Southern Door 45. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the Packerland is just so difficult to figure out. I mean, Southern Door got blown out by Kiwani in what was decidedly the conference championship. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense what's going on, but I mean, Valders is so solid defensively that if this game speeds up, I think it'll favor Southern Door because, Southern Door's wins have been coming when they're in the 70s, they're in the 80s. They scored 100 against Sevastopol, I think. So, I mean, Valders likes playing in the 40s, the 50s, really killing the ball in the half court, working for great shots. It's proven to be successful. I mean, that's exactly what they did to Kiel, and they broke them down. And really, I think the game was not as close as the final score kind of indicated because they were in control pretty much throughout.
Yeah, I agree. I think Valders will slow it down. I think Coach Schwer, he knows that. He knows his strengths as a team. They're going to slow it down. They're going to get a good possession, get a good look from 3, or when they run that dribble drive offense, get a bounce pass down low for 2. But yeah, I totally agree with you. The 2 games I've seen Valders, they didn't score 40 one game and they scored 49 the other game. So, but it was 2 close games. The 2 games I saw, they only got outscored by Brilliant by 1 point in regulation in both of those 2 games combined. So solid team. Yep. I just think Valders should win this one. I got Valders by 17. All right. So game 2, we talked a little bit before about this. Sheboygan Falls versus Denmark. This one's a tricky one. Remember, I believe it was 2 years ago. It would have been Jamison Nikolai's sophomore year. That Denmark team went to state. They had Patrick Sumnek, Zane Short, Brady Jens, really star-loaded team. They beat Freedom in that sectional final, and they lost to Waupun at state. They only lost by 6 points in that game. I believe it was the regional final. So they were right there with the team who got to state 2 years ago. And I think if you're looking, Denmark's the one in that pod. We could be looking at a close game here. I think some people could be overlooking this game, but I think this game could be really close. What are your thoughts on Denmark?
Yeah, I mean, last year too, I think they played Denmark in the regional semifinal before we played them in the regional final, and they gave them a decent run. Their old coach is back, so kind of, I don't even know what his name is. I know he went to St. Albert. He was there when they were good, and he's back. So I think that it's obviously a well-coached Denmark team, but I think that their 1-3-1, as in Falls's, will give Denmark some issues. They don't really have anybody shooting threes, nor do they take a lot of threes. I think Short has their most 3-point attempts, and he's like 23 for 80, I think. So, the only way that Denmark really breaks down the 1-3-1 is I think that Short and Konkel are extremely tall, and Falls's 1-3-1 isn't the typical Falls 1-3-1 that it was last year, and even the year before that. So I think that Falls wins. I think it's a close game, but don't be surprised if they let Short get going, that Denmark wins.
So you got Falls beating Denmark.
Correct. I think Falls will beat them 1 possession, 2 possession game.
Yeah, that's not a bad take. I got Denmark winning by a little bit, just because I just think they're a little more star-loaded. And the thing that stood out to me against Denmark, sorry, I'm actually going to go to a game I watched on film of Denmark. They played Luxembourg Casco, and Casco had a zone, so pretty comparable. I'm not sure if it was a 1-3-1. I can't really remember. I don't think it was, but I just remember how active Short was in the short corners and high posts in that zone. He got it. He was going to turn around, and it was going up. He had 42 points in that game earlier on in the year. And then they played him again. He had 44 against Casco, and they put up all triple digits. I believe that was a 5 overtime game, though. So we'll kind of throw that one out. But so, Donovan Short went.
Yeah, because I think Short scored like 45 in that game, didn't he?
44, yes. So,
yeah.
Against the zone, from what I watched, Donovan Short's been really tough. In the game that when Brilliant played them, he's Donovan Short. There's a reason he's got D1 offers already from USC, from Milwaukee, from Lehigh, big schools. He's just a stud. And you got Hayden Konko averaging 18 points per game. I don't think he gets mentioned enough. He's really good too. He can shoot the ball, and he's really physical inside. But I think a key for Falls is, I'll go back to the Brilliant game again. Hunter Kreplin had his career high 35 points in that game with no help. We had several JV starters starting the game, and they're just defense. They're Denmark's on-ball defense. I just thought it wasn't very good. Hunter basically got a shot whenever he wanted. He connected with a lot of shots there. So I think, especially with Tommy Murray being unfortunately out for the year with COVID, whatever, I think Nikolai, look for him to dominate the ball a little more. I think that's a way they can stay in this game, is Nikolai dominates the ball a little more, tries to hit that floater from about 10 to 12 feet he loves. And then Malachi Munoz, he's a top 5 shooter in this conference, as we discussed before. Dude's deadly from about 12 to 16 feet, deadly from beyond the arc. Look for him to have a big game too. I don't know. I think this game will be very close. I think the seeds are a little misleading. I'm looking for this to be a really close game. I got Denmark by a little bit, just because Short has been so big in zone games. But I would not be surprised at all to have Falls knock off the 1-seeded Vikings.
Yep.
All right, so we got this next game, and you're going to like this matchup here. We got the Roncalli Jets taking on the Mishcon Indians. We don't even have to spend 10 seconds on this game.
I wrote down 4 words.
All right.
Easy clap for Roncalli.
I wrote down 3. I wrote down Roncalli by 30 plus. So, I mean, we all know how hard playing in that jet hangar is, especially when it's going to be packed. Extra tickets or student section, bright lighting in there. You got the balcony. I'm sure Brian Norton will be on the call. It's just nothing like it. Like until you've played there several times, you don't really get used to it. And I just think an unsuspecting Indians team who doesn't have many wins on the year, they just knocked off Sevastopol, but they're going to come in there and it's not going to be a game. I'll be surprised if it's kept within 30 points. I honestly will, because I just think Roncalli is just going to do anything they want against Michigan. And, not to overlook Michigan or not to say they're not, but they're just not on the same level as Roncalli, and it's a typical Roncalli first round game, and they're going to win. So we don't have to spend any more time on that unless you want to add something.
No, I mean, Roncalli is going to have a chance to play for they'll play Manitowoc Lutheran to go to the sectional. So, it should be I'm looking forward to the sectional when hopefully we get Sheboygan Lutheran and Roncalli, because I think that Roncalli will get through this regional with some ease.
Yeah. Yep. Looks like a normal regional year for Roncalli. So we got 2 more games left, and we got probably I know we got Kiel and the Holstein. We'll save that one for last because I'm sure you have a lot to say on that game. But we'll go with Brilliant versus Kewanee. We talked a little bit about Kewanee when we brought up Southern Door, but Kewanee's a team we saw against. I watched that game against Chilton. They won 68-58. They've had a lot of high-scoring games. Alex Rohr, 18 points per game for them. He's a 3-year starter, I believe. It's bombs away in Kewanee. They're just looking to get their shooters a shot. They're looking to just not play out of control, but they're just looking to run and gun. And like you said, they had a nice win against Shiocton a couple weeks ago. They scored, I believe, 78 points, 76, something like that. They can score up in the 70s, and they've had a lot of wins up in the 70s. So that's the thing with this Brilliant team. If Kewanee gets hot, look out. It could be trouble for the Brilliant Lions. And, Brilliant is the worst 3-point percentage in the conference. They finally had a couple bounce in against Chilton last game, so they kind of ran away with the game in the second half there, scoring, I believe, 45 second half points. But if they're not hitting their shots, and Kewanee is, this is easily, it will be a close game like it was the first time. And Brilliant just going to have to, just play their game and slow it down and get the ball to their horse, Jeremy Lorenz, and just knock down timely shots.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Kewanee against Kiel. They're super scrappy. They're not super skilled, but Heim and Rohr, if they get hot, they can go. But I also don't think that, they get the luxury of not really seeing any defenses. I mean, last year coming into, I think, our regional against them, they had 3 or 4 guys shooting above 40% from 3. And they maybe made 2 or 3 threes. So I think Brilliant, I mean, they're a good enough defensive team that I think that they're going to force Kewanee to knock down some tough shots, work some possessions. And that's not really the type of game that Kewanee wants to play. They want to play up and down. They want to play a little loose.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I got Brilliant.
Yeah, I do have Brilliant by about 10 here, by eight points in there. I do think those win comfortably. And I do what's really helped Brilliant is the addition of Carter Stabani. He just really have helped. Early on he just started figuring it out, and he was kind of unsure, but really over the last five games here, he's been guarding their best player. So I'm guessing he'll be on Rohr. Kreplin's a really good defender too, especially off ball. So you got 3 really good defenders in Holly, Stabani, and Kreplin on the perimeter for Brilliant. So hopefully that plays a little bit in their favor. Yeah, I expect a Brilliant to win here, and I mean we can move on to the big one. This is the one. This will be the best game, the most hyped game in the conference on Friday. We got 2 conference teams. They met twice. I was at one of the games, and it definitely lived up to the hype. Kiel versus New Holstein. I'll just let you ramble on for about 5 minutes here. Just what are your thoughts on this game? Give me some insight. What's going on? Let me. What's this going to look like?
don't want to get myself in trouble, man. I I see. I've always been under the old adage that it's really, really, really hard to beat a team three
Yep.
times. Especially New Holsting has played Kiel so close in both games.
Yes.
Bar none that Kiel has not played well in either one of those games. But still, I'm super excited. I'll be on the call, but I don't know. New Holsting is playing really well. I watched the second half yesterday. And they knocked down some shots. Oh my goodness. I texted Coach Jarnes. I said, "You watching this?" And I said it was Michael Jordan in the form of Henry Schnell in the second half. He absolutely exploded. If New Holsting can knock down some shots against Kiel, it's gonna come down to the wire again. But I think that for Kiel, coming into their favor is, Coleman has been struggling a little bit lately, and so is Pierce Arndt. So if they can figure out a way to get going, I think that it's going to be a close game. I don't want to pick a winner because I think,
of course,
no matter what I say, I'm going to be really, really wrong. So, I think that it's going to be a really good game. I can see both teams winning, and I wouldn't be surprised if New Holsting comes in and upsets, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kiel wins in double digits. So it's going to be a great game. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I would call Kiel. They'd probably be favored. I would call New Holstein a slight underdog just because, they just don't have the record Kiel does. They don't have maybe the most explosive plays, or they don't have the best, as good as stats as Kiel does. But you can't count them out. At no point in the game, I watched that Cedar Grove game on Tuesday. At no point in the game, I was like, oh, this game's over. I always thought, well, New Holstein's going to come marching back. And I was exactly right. I just knew at every time, because they're such a balanced team. They're such senior led, and there's a really solid group of players, really balanced. I'm not going to be able to see that game live, unfortunately, but that's the one I'm most excited about. I think a lot of people are excited about it, and I think New Holstein, they're coming in, not much to lose. They just want to beat off their rival Kiel.
And I know. New Holsting had a lead late against Kiel in the second game, and Dan Schmitz just had kind of sort of an out-of-body experience, just unloading on two triples. Mitch Andrews had a big three late. So I think that, if you're going to put a key on this game, I think it's the bench production of both teams. I think that Coleman's going to get his, Lepisto's going to get his. I think that Cameron Olsen and Sam Kasper are both going to have solid games. It's just a matter of who shows up in that third and fourth option scoring.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do. It obviously helps Kiel that they're at home, but you know New Holstein's going to be bringing their fans. Their student section travels well. They had the better, louder student section at Cedar Grove the other night, and New Holstein, they've been really fun to watch down the stretch after kind of an unfortunate beginning to their season, and they're just as good as any team in this conference. And I just can't wait for this Friday basketball coming up. We got Southern Door versus Valders, Sheboygan Falls at Denmark, Roncalli against Mishicot at home, Brilliant against Kewanee at home, and Kiel at home against New Holstein. Any more notes you want to talk about? Any notes, any news, or anything you also want to talk about in the conference? It's opening up to anything here.
I think that, if you're going to put a key to, a big upset, I think in terms of seeding, it's obviously New Holstein against Kiel, but I think that the biggest underdog this week has got to be Sheboygan Falls.
I was just about to say, I think, yeah.
I think that if Falls wants to win, it's going to be just playing through Nikolai. Especially for him, his mindset going to the game has got to be, for us to win, I need to probably get in the 30s. So let that thing fly, get hot. And next year when you're deciding on a college in March, April, just come up to the pier.
Oh yeah, I agree. He's definitely, like we said, I'll go back to it. Jamison Nikolai, it's a shame he got robbed. He would have had 1,000 points, but we could have watched him all year. I really would have liked to see what he could have done in a full season, but that's just how the season works. I mean, he's playing the second round of the playoffs. I'm sure if you would have told him that last season at this time, they would have taken it. Any team would take that right now. So we're really in for a fun set of the next two games, and who knows, maybe we'll get a preview. Maybe Friday night after the games, see what you're doing late. Maybe not, but maybe we could have a preview for the regional finals. And yeah, so this should basically do it if we have no other topics to talk about. And yeah, so that's our preview for the semifinal games coming up on Friday. I don't believe the Mark Miller picks are out yet. I'd assume they
No.
pretty much match up with what we had. I'm guessing he'd have Kiel over New Holstein, and I'm guessing he'd obviously take Denmark over Falls because he just picks the higher seed normally. But yeah, but like we said, we made all of our points. I mean that's pretty spot on. So
If I was a betting man, I would wait for Mark Miller to put his picks out, and I would probably fade him as
Really?
they would in gambling lingo. Fade Mark Miller. I'm gonna start the movement.
Fade Mark Miller. You know, he's been known to have that. He's been in over 80%, I believe,
Oh, okay.
last couple of years for first round. So no, hopefully he's not watching this podcast too closely. But anyways, so yeah, that'll wrap it up. Hopefully we can get you another podcast soon. I believe I have a guest from Roncalli coming up in the near future, who's a state champion, first team all conference player. He'll be coming on the show sometime in the near future. We'll probably have another recap, and we'll definitely do a end of the season recap, and hopefully teams stay in it. Hopefully we got Kiel, Brilliant, Roncalli. Hopefully we got teams in it into the sectionals, and we can just talk about them because nothing better than this time of the year talking basketball. All right. Thanks for coming on today, Connor, and we'll maybe see you Friday night.
Yes. Thanks for having me.